Jens has worked with SCD's machine learning group and the European EOSC project. He's a champion of the STFC Food Network with a keen interest to work with SFN Pros, which is the science STFC Food Network group. To promote STFC wide range of data science expertise to help improve animal welfare, food quality and safety, and reduce food waste and environmental impact. I mean, it's been a pleasure to have been a champion of the STFC Food Network alongside James, and I know of the amazing work he's been doing using advanced technological advanced technological solutions to help within the food system. So now I will hand over to James. Please, we would really love to hear from you and get some insight in some of the work you've been doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ivy. So I will just see if I can find my slides. They should be appearing shortly. With a bit of luck. There we go. Thank you very much. So I'm sorry I couldn't be there the whole day. Unfortunately, I have a very packed day today. So I'm very pleased to be able to just pop in and say hello, but obviously it would be much nicer if we could have some more time for discussions. So what I'm trying to talk to cover today in this particular slot is how we work towards sustainable food networks with digital platforms, and how do we build digital platforms that are suitable for that sort of activities. And bearing in mind that many of the people that we talk to are not computer experts, they are experts in food or in markets or food safety or whatever, and we need to give them a platform that is usable for them, that they actually don't struggle or waste time trying to learn computer systems when it really just should be working for them. So let's look at sustainability and how that might work with the food, from a food perspective. I should say that, so with all the nice things that Ify said about me in the introduction, I am not an expert on food at all. All I know about food is what I know about as a consumer, going into going shopping or cooking and that sort of stuff. So I'm trying to come from it from the digital platform perspective. So this is a challenge that I picked up from Professor Peter Ball, who was a PI of one of the Food Network projects. Why can't we do things on a small scale? And picking up on that, just off the top of my head, I can think of lots of examples why bigger is not necessarily better. You may have heard of the large chicken farms in Wales that are polluting rivers. You might have heard of small abattoirs closing, so animals need to be transported larger distances. Having buildings full of lots of animals is not good for animal welfare. Caged hens might be efficient in some sort of sense, some sort of economic sense, but it's not good for the hens. And the cheap processed food makes people ill, basically. There's just been a study out recently I saw in the news somewhere. So bigger is not better. And just picking up on Peter's challenge, how can we enable the things to be done on a smaller scale? So going back to Peter's slides, he investigated in York in a project that also had Ify involved. We looked at localizing food production and food use and making use of the food waste in a circular economy kind of thing. But you could also look at doing things on a different scale. Could you miniaturize things? So some of our other food projects have looked at Internet of Things. Can we miniaturize sensors and stuff and put them into places where we can monitor the health in a beehive and just alert the beekeeper if there's anything going wrong? Or we can put stuff in food producers like cafeterias and hotels and stuff and just alert them if there's any waste that could be repurposed. And then there's the whole digital twins thing. Everybody's talking about digital twins, and you may ask, how can digital twins help us doing things here? And this is kind of what I'm working towards in this talk. How can we build digital twins that will help us model what happens in an urban local environment in terms of produce and managing the circular economy, not just in a financial sense, but also in the sense of getting the logistical sense of getting produce from the producer to the consumer. So again, one of Peter's slides, we looked in a specific instance in vertical farming in York, which produced basil for pizzas in local restaurants. So they could basically produce that to order, knowing exactly how they grew because they were in a controlled environment. And then you can look at food waste using the IntelliDigest tool to derive nutrients out of food that would otherwise have been wasted. You can put in stuff from breweries that deliver beer to restaurants. They also have byproducts that can be used to build panels in our case. And in turn, you can take all of those things out and feed them back into the vertical farms. And then you get the circular economy thing going on a small scale, but that's precisely what we want, because we want to demonstrate it's working and we want to track how the products actually work. So within this circular economy framework, we then looked at how we can integrate things with essentially a data backplane. How do you get that data? How do you simulate how the economy would work? How do you communicate that to the wider stakeholders? Because you want in York, for example, you want the city of York to be involved at some level because they have an interest in having a sustainable environment in the city. So that was just an example, the circular economy in York. There are many other examples where you want to manage the markets and supply chain because you want to coordinate the producers and consumers with each other, because you want to produce stuff without wasting it. So either you say to the consumers, you alert them when there's a product that is ready to go to market, or conversely, you have the consumers placing an order saying, I have a big event happening in next month. Can I pre-place my order for something other? And thereby minimizing the waste, the time that that product is stored or transported by planning ahead, basically. The other thing is just to engage people. So recently there was a study in Newcastle, I think, where they looked at how much produce could you possibly produce locally. This is almost like a sort of wartime economy where you have dig for victory. If everybody used their back gardens and the green spaces and stuff to produce food, they could cover up to 30% of the needs of the city of Newcastle. So how can you support small-scale producers to actually do stuff and produce food that you may want to sell, and use that in a proper way to develop, to provide nutritious food, locally grown food for the region. So it's no use that if everybody just starts growing carrots, because you get too many carrots. You need to coordinate things on a larger scale so you get a variety of produce that are suitable to the soil, perhaps, that are suitable to the environment, to the climate in that region. So at the same time, you still want to minimize the time and the energy on transportation of the produce. So you can basically make the whole thing flow on a local scale. You may also want to understand people, because most people feel that they haven't got a lot of time. So it's easier to just go to the supermarket, but the supermarket has flown beans in from Kenya rather than getting them grown in Oxfordshire. So I'm based in Oxfordshire. So if you're in the shop and you look at a something, courgette or something, you don't see necessarily the country of origin of that. So ideally you want local produce, but sometimes it's flown in from really far away in the world for some reason that is best known to the supermarket. So if you were informed, if you checked every time where your produce was grown, would it inspire you to buy local food, or do you not care? Do you just want the cheapest one? And that's where we need to engage with people to find out what they what are their priorities. Because if you need to go somewhere to buy carrots, and you need to go somewhere else to buy bread, and you need to go somewhere third to buy milk, then it can take a lot of time. Whereas in a supermarket, you're just pushing a trolley around and you're putting stuff in the trolley, and then you check out at the end. And that basically saves you time, which is the whole point of supermarkets in the first place. So there's that thing, if you want that circular economy, the local produce, the local economy, how do you engage people with that as well, not just the logistics of moving things around? So overall, when we talk about sustainability, we really want to support the big goals of things. So we're really talking about it because of the climate. How do you build, not just to avoid producing CO2 as much as possible, or other climate greenhouse gases, but you also want to build resilience so that you don't run out of carrots in Newcastle because the supply somewhere has failed in Spain or something, and suddenly you've run out of carrots in Newcastle. So you want to try and build resilience into your supply chain as well, and that is easier to do if it's a local supply chain. Also, because of the discussions about the ultra-processed foods and things, you may want to try to encourage people to eat more nutritiously, to eat local food, and get better health that way. And ideally reducing poverty as well by making sure that farmers are given a good, they're paid for the thing that they produce. So there's been much discussion about the price of milk in the UK, where we are not paying enough for milk to actually make it sustainable for the farmer. So again, this is a case perhaps where the large-scale supermarkets can put pressure on the farmers to lower their prices, and maybe that would be better if that didn't happen, that you set a fair price for the milk. And the same thing with coffee and anything else that's produced. You want the farmers to have make a living, but you also want them to have some good, safe conditions for their animals, for their workers, and that sort of thing. So the welfare is also part of this thing. How can we improve the welfare of animals, of workers, of farmers, that sort of thing? So that's part of the big picture of why we're getting to this sustainability. So now we'll get to the digital platform, because what I want to talk to you about today is how we enable that. If we now go back to the York example, it's obviously based on a map of the region of York that we're looking at. It's based on data about the restaurants that are available. It was also chosen for having student accommodation nearby, so we know students like pizzas, and pizzas need to have basil on them, and basil needs to be grown locally in the vertical farm. So we also know that students like beer, and beer was also part of the economy that we looked at. So choosing a place with lots of students seemed to be a good idea. But the point here is that we're combining the static data we've got, where the sort of restaurants don't change every day, and the students change, but generally there will be a large number of students in the region. And then there's the dynamic data about which produce is available, and how much of it is available, and to whom, and at what price is it available. So there will be dynamic data combined with the static data that goes into the model, and a visualization of how the whole thing works, because you can only see how the whole thing works when you have like an overview, like a dashboard kind of thing. We tried to model this with an Excel spreadsheet just to make it accessible for people who were not computing experts, to see how things could flow around in a digital economy, circular economy environment. So one of the ways we do this is on the Daphne infrastructure, and I just want to say a few words about Daphne because it's a digital platform that's meant to be easy to use for people who are not computing experts, but you can still build workflows together. So if he had some students at some point who worked on the Daphne platform on building models of using the IntelliDigest tool to recover nutrients from food that would otherwise have been wasted in restaurants. So we built some simple scripts that could simulate those environments. So you can see how the economics of that would work on the basis of the simulation. And that's typical of what Daphne does. So Daphne is basically for studying infrastructure, whether it's a supply chain, or whether it's electricity supply or traffic in a particular neighborhood. So you have a user interface, you have a database with data in it, and you have a visualization platform, and all that tied together to bring data in from different sources, from so like whether it's geospatial data, it's demographics data, it's economics data. You bring that together into the platform, and then you sort of digest that data set and produce visualizations around that. So here's a quick snapshot of a traffic digital twin in Sheffield. You can imagine something along the same lines doing the digital economy as well. So you can, instead of seeing traffic in your map, you see how the produce flow around in the map, and then you speed things up a bit so you can see what happens over here, for example. So with a digital platform, you need to interface it to external environments. If you're not just doing simulations, you need to get data into it, and it could come from users with their phones. They could enter data or scan stuff, and you can put. We have even explored producing apps to put on phones that can interface with data distribution hubs that we run in a cloud that push data into my data center. So we can gather data about a region and see how the economy is working, how the circular economy works. There are also, in cases of farming, lots of digital platforms, and the Food Network, if you're interested in digital platforms for farming, produced a report about the existing the products that are available for farmers to support the specifics about farmers communicating with each other and with the markets and with the customers who want to buy their stuff. And there are lots of other ways you can interface things into the platform. So connecting things together with various things. And as I alluded to in the beginning, the whole thing, what we really want it to be is an easy to use platform for the person who is an expert in the food, in the economy, in the compliance, in whatever domain. They do not have to be experts in computing. We want to make this available for people who are domain experts and not computing experts. And that means that the user experience has to be very user-friendly. So with the database, it gives you an interface you can explore. You can see which region is covered. So if you're looking for Newcastle or something, you can search for things that include Newcastle or that are specific to Newcastle. And you can start exploring stuff in that environment, whether it's demographics, whether it's geospatial data, whether it is economics data or something else that may be available on the platform. And with that, you get what we call models, where you explore the data and you combine the data from different sources, and you have you basically process that in workflows. And the workflows then in turn spit out usually visualizations at the end, which could be a Jupyter notebook, or it could be a data exploration tool, or it could be simply a visualization of the region where you can see how things flow around with sort of in the circular economy. So the whole point is that this thing needs to be user-friendly so that we can get the domain experts to do things. And with that, I'll wrap up. Thank you very much.
Fantastic presentation. Thank you very much, James, for that. Quite a great insight to some of the projects that you worked on and how advanced technologies are being applied to it. But more importantly, I think it's really good how you put into the perspective of the wider food system challenges. So that was quite insightful.